Remember when children's television wasn't afraid to tackle real issues? When we'd rush home from school, dump our bags by the door and plant ourselves in front of the telly for our daily dose of after-school brilliance. Those were the days when British kids' TV ruled supreme, creating shows that shaped an entire generation. We're talking about programs that dealt with everything from drug addiction to cosmic adventures, all before Teatime. But here's the shocking truth. Many of these shows would never make it past today's broadcasting standards. Too controversial, too edgy, or simply too weird for modern sensibilities. Let's take a nostalgic journey through 15 shows that defined childhood in 1980s Britain. Where else to start but with the most controversial children's programme ever broadcast on British television? Grange Hill wasn't just a school drama. It was a social experiment that put real teenage issues on screen when everyone else was pretending kids lived in a bubble. Created by Phil Redmond, who'd later give us Brookside and Hollyoaks, this wasn't your typical wholesome BBC fare. The show tackled everything from teenage pregnancy to racism, but nothing caused more uproar than the Zammo heroin storyline in 1986. Samuel Zammo Maguire's descent into drug addiction had parents writing angry letters to Points of View in record numbers. The campaign that followed, complete with that unforgettable anti-drug single that reached number 5 in the UK charts, became a cultural phenomenon. The cast performed at the White House for Nancy Reagan's Just Say No campaign, making it an international moment for British children's television. The show's gritty realism came at a cost, though. Several cast members struggled with typecasting for years afterward. Todd Carty, who played Tucker Jenkins, was so synonymous with his character that he essentially played variations of Tucker for the next decade, eventually appearing in EastEnders as Mark Fowler. The show's reputation for controversy led to some schools actively discouraging pupils from watching it, which naturally made it even more appealing to its target audience. Blue Peter, the magazine show that somehow convinced millions of British children that creating a Tracy Island from washing up liquid bottles and toilet rolls was a perfectly reasonable weekend activity. Though running since 1958, the 80s era represented a golden age, with presenters like Janet Ellis, Peter Duncan and Simon Groom becoming as familiar as family members. The show's famous garden was vandalised in 1983 by an unknown intruder who dug up plants and damaged Percy Thrower's prized vegetables. While conspiracy theories abounded, it remained one of children's television's great mysteries. Janet Ellis's departure in 1987, coinciding with her pregnancy announcement, sparked controversy about the BBC's treatment of female presenters. Though the BBC denied any connection, the timing raised eyebrows throughout the industry. Quick question for you. Did you know that Blue Peter badges were so coveted that they developed genuine value among children? Kids would trade them for everything from panini stickers to pocket money. Speaking of which, if you're enjoying this trip down memory lane, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our nostalgic content. We've got a brilliant revelation about one of these shows coming up that will absolutely blow your mind. Created on a budget that would make modern animators weep, Danger Mouse became one of the most successful British animations ever exported. David Jason's vocal performance as DM and Terry Scott as Penfold created comedy gold from scripts that often had to work around severe budget limitations. The animation techniques used were revolutionary for their constraints. Characters frequently spoke with their backs turned or while holding objects in front of their mouths because lip-sync animation was too expensive. Baron Silas Greenback, the recurring villain, was almost always shown in silhouette. Not for dramatic effect, but because fully animating him cost too much. These limitations became the show's signature style. The series spawned Count Duckula as a spin-off, though the character appeared in Danger Mouse as a recurring villain who kept dying and being resurrected in different forms. The show eventually aired in over 60 countries, proving that British humour could translate globally when wrapped in animation about a secret agent mouse. Starting in November 1989, Byker Grove just squeaks into our 80s list, but its immediate impact on British youth television earns its place here. Set in a Newcastle youth club, it gave us PJ and Duncan, better known today as Ant and Dec, and tackled issues that even Grange Hill approached carefully. The show's commitment to authenticity meant casting local Newcastle kids with minimal acting experience, leading to performances that were sometimes rough around the edges, but always genuine. The Geordie accents were so pronounced that the BBC received complaints from southern viewers who struggled to understand the dialogue. Rather than tone them down, producers encouraged the cast to speak naturally, making it a celebration of regional identity. The series would later become famous for storylines involving everything from teenage relationships to disability representation, but its 1989 foundation established it as a programme willing to reflect real teenage life in all its messy complexity. Everyone remembers Zippy, George and Bungle, but Rainbow's history is more complex than its cheerful exterior suggested. Originally conceived as Britain's answer to Sesame Street, the show developed its own distinctly British sensibility that set it apart from its American inspiration. The infamous Twangers episode, featuring barely concealed innuendo about playing with twangers and plucking, was indeed created for Thames Television's staff Christmas tape, never intended for broadcast. However, bootleg copies circulated so widely that it became part of Rainbow folklore. Geoffrey Hayes, the show's presenter from 1974 to 1992, later admitted he struggled financially during and after the show's run, though he remained proud of his role in children's television history. Rod, Jane and Freddie, and earlier Rod, Matt and Jane, provided musical interludes that parents enjoyed as much as children, with clever wordplay that operated on multiple levels. The show's 1992 cancellation ended a 20-year run, marking the end of an era in British children's programming. ThunderCats, though American-Japanese in origin, found a spiritual home in Britain where it aired from 1985. The show's UK broadcast on ITV actually helped establish its English-language success, with British children among the first to embrace Lion-O and his fellow Thunderians. The programme faced criticism from parent groups concerned about violence in children's television, with some schools banning ThunderCats merchandise and playground games. The Christmas toy shortage of 1986 saw desperate parents queuing outside toy shops from early morning, with some stores implementing lottery systems to fairly distribute the limited stock. The battle cry, "Thunder, Thunder, Thundercats, ho!" became so ubiquitous in British playgrounds that teachers reported it disrupting lessons. Yet the show's popularity endured, with its mythology of ancient swords, mystical powers, and moral lessons resonating with children across the country. Before Transformers dominated toy shelves, He-Man ruled British children's television from 1983. The show aired on ITV, creating loyalty divisions in households where children had to choose between BBC and ITV programming. The British Broadcast Standards Authority did receive complaints about He-Man, though primarily concerning its commercial nature rather than violence. The show was essentially a 30-minute toy advertisement, pioneering a model that would become increasingly common. Parents groups worried about the pressure on family budgets as children demanded every figure, vehicle and playset. Each episode's moral segment, where He-Man or another character would directly address viewers with a life lesson, became both beloved and parodied. These segments were actually added specifically for television broadcast to provide educational value and deflect criticism about the show's commercial nature. Mr. Spoon's journeys to Button Moon in his homemade rocket epitomised the charm of low-budget British children's television. Created by Ian Allen and featuring the voice talents of Robin Parkinson, the show proved that imagination trumped expensive effects. The theme tune's opening line, "We're off to Button Moon," became instantly recognisable, though the song was performed by Peter Davison, the Fifth Doctor, and his then-wife Sandra Dickinson. The deliberately homemade aesthetic, using everyday objects as characters and sets, encouraged children to see creative potential in household items. Episodes were produced on such a tight schedule that scripts were often adjusted based on whatever props could be sourced from charity shops that week. This improvised approach gave the show an organic, playful quality that more polished productions couldn't replicate. The Bottle Army and other recurring characters emerged from these happy accidents of production. While Fraggle Rock was an international co-production, the British version was genuinely unique. Our wraparound segments featured Fulton Mackay as the lighthouse keeper, later replaced by John Gordon Sinclair, while other countries received completely different framing stories. This means British children experienced a fundamentally different narrative context from viewers elsewhere. The show's complex ecosystem, where Fraggles ate doozer constructions which doozers built compulsively, while Gorgs saw Fraggles as pests, presented sophisticated ecological and social concepts. Jim Henson intended these relationships to explore interdependence and community, themes that resonated during the politically charged 1980s. HTV's broadcast of the series from 1984 to 1987 made it essential tea-time viewing. The final episode aired in Britain with a unique edit that included additional scenes with the lighthouse keeper, creating what collectors now consider the definitive ending. This version has never been released commercially, making recorded copies highly sought after. Sweet, innocent Postman Pat with his black and white cat Jess, delivering letters in the idyllic village of Greendale, created by John Cunliffe and animated by Ivor Wood. Ken Barry provided Pat's voice and sang the theme tune, though contractual issues meant he wasn't credited on screen during the original run from 1981. The show's gentle pace and rural setting offered a nostalgic view of British village life that was already disappearing. Greendale's impossible economics, a tiny population supporting multiple services and businesses, actually prompted discussions about rural sustainability in media studies courses. The stop-motion animation produced at Woodland Animations required painstaking attention to detail. Each 11-minute episode took weeks to film, with animators moving models fractionally between each frame. Pat's van alone required constant maintenance, as the heat from studio lights would often cause the plasticine to droop. This French-Japanese collaboration became essential viewing for British children when it aired on the BBC from 1986. The blend of historical adventure, science fiction elements, and educational content created something unique in children's programming. The documentary segments concluding each episode provided genuine historical context about pre-Columbian civilizations, conquistadors, and South American geography. These segments were so well regarded that teachers began incorporating episodes into history lessons, one of the few times animated entertainment became classroom material. The British dub took some creative liberties with dialogue to better suit BBC standards, though the core story remained intact. Howard Rishburn's narration provided continuity that helped young viewers follow the complex plot across 39 episodes. The Golden Condor's solar-powered flight mechanism, another anachronistic technology, sparked countless playground debates about ancient astronauts and lost civilizations. Don't forget, we're halfway through our nostalgic journey. If these memories are flooding back, make sure you've subscribed to catch all our retro content. Hit that notification bell too, because next week we're diving into the forgotten toys of the 80s that nearly bankrupted our parents. One for all and all for one, Musker Hounds are always ready. This Spanish-Japanese production, created by BRB International and Nippon Animation, became so embedded in British culture that many assumed it was British-made. The theme song, performed in English specifically for the UK market, achieved legendary earworm status. First broadcast on the BBC in 1981, the show's faithful adaptation of Alexandre Dumas' classic tale introduced children to proper storytelling with season-long story arcs, character development, and genuine emotional stakes. Dogtanian's romance with Juliet was surprisingly sophisticated, featuring misunderstandings, separations, and reconciliations that taught young viewers about relationships beyond simple fairy tale endings. The animation quality varied wildly between episodes as different teams worked on different sections, leading to Dogtanian occasionally changing appearance mid-scene. Rather than detracting from enjoyment, these quirks became part of its charm, with children spotting animation errors like a game. The merchandise. Transformers' arrival in Britain in 1985 revolutionised both children's television and toy marketing. The cartoon, essentially a 30-minute advertisement for Hasbro's toy line, challenged UK broadcasting regulations about commercial content in children's programming. The 1986 animated movie traumatised a generation of British children with Optimus Prime's death. Cinema staff across the country reported similar scenes: children leaving screenings in tears, parents demanding refunds, and hurried explanations that it was just a cartoon. The backlash was so severe that Hasbro eventually resurrected the character, partly due to pressure from the UK market where the film had been particularly successful. British playground culture embraced Transformers completely, with complex social hierarchies developing around who owned which toys. Soundwave, with his transforming cassette minions, became particularly coveted after supply issues made him nearly impossible to find in British shops. Spinning off from Danger Mouse in 1988, Count Duckula succeeded by inverting vampire conventions. David Jason returned to voice the title character, bringing warmth to a vampire duck who preferred broccoli to blood. The castle's ability to teleport anywhere in the world provided endless story possibilities while keeping production costs manageable. New locations simply required new painted backgrounds. Igor's attempts to restore the vampire dynasty's evil reputation, constantly thwarted by Duckula's good nature and Nanny's incompetence, created comedy that worked on multiple levels. The series ran for 65 episodes, remarkable for a spin-off. Its success led to merchandise, books, and even a computer game. The vegetarian angle, initially added to make the character more child-friendly, accidentally made Count Duckula an unlikely icon for the growing vegetarian movement of the late 80s. Concluding with Knightmare feels appropriate because it revolutionised children's television when it launched in 1987. Using chroma key technology in unprecedented ways, it created the first virtual reality game show, predating modern VR by decades. Hugo Myatt's Tree Guard became legendary for his cryptic advice and ominous warnings. The phrase, "ooh, nasty," entered playground vocabulary immediately. The show's brutal difficulty, with a success rate below 8%, didn't deter applicants. If anything, the challenge enhanced its appeal. Creator Tim Child deliberately made the show challenging to prove children could handle complex entertainment. The teamwork required, one with the Dungeoneer blind to dangers while teammates guided them, taught communication skills that schools couldn't replicate. Some educators actually studied the show's effectiveness at developing cooperative problem solving. The technology seems primitive now, but in 1987, seeing children walk through computer-generated dungeons was revolutionary. The show inspired countless programmers and game designers who cite Knightmare as their introduction to interactive entertainment's possibilities. These 15 programs didn't just fill the gap between school and dinner, they shaped a generation's imagination, values, and vocabulary. They treated children as intelligent viewers capable of understanding complex themes, from Grange Hill's social realism to Fraggle Rock's ecological allegories. What made 80s children's television special wasn't production values or celebrity voices. It was creativity born from constraint. Limited budgets forced innovation, regulatory restrictions sparked cleverness. The result was programming that trusted its audience's intelligence while never forgetting to entertain. Modern children's television, for all its technical sophistication, often lacks the creative risk-taking these shows embodied. They emerged from a unique moment when broadcasters, creators, and regulators were still working out what children's television could be. That experimentation gave us everything from vegetarian vampires to virtual reality dungeons. These shows created shared cultural touchstones that defined British childhood in the 80s. We all remember specific episodes, shared playground games based on our favourite characters, and attempted craft projects that looked nothing like the Blue Peter example. They gave us common ground that transcended regional, economic, and social differences. So here's to the weird, wonderful world of 80s British children's television, to the shows that would never get commissioned today, but somehow helped raise an entire generation. We survived the trauma of Optimus Prime's death, learned that drugs were bad from a kid called Zammo, and discovered that even teddy bears could be superheroes. If this nostalgic journey has rekindled those after-school memories, why not subscribe to our channel? Hit that subscribe button and notification bell to join our community of 80s kids who refuse to completely grow up. Drop a comment telling us which show shaped your childhood. We genuinely read every single one. And remember, just like the best of 80s television, we're here to entertain, inform, and occasionally make you wonder what on earth you're watching. Until next time, this is Nostalgia Central signing off. Now, who's humming the Dogtanian theme tune?